how much one values themselves, and not to be like narcissistic or self-obsessed or selfish, but to have a healthy sense of self-esteem, so that even like, for example, living on the internet,
Yeah.
there's always competition around you. I hate it about myself,
Hmm.
but oftentimes I look at other creators and feel, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. um, but I think a shift in my self-esteem is required, so that I don't feel that way. And if one's self-esteem is slightly more elevated and at a healthy place, then you just want everyone to succeed, and you understand that there is enough room for everybody.
That's Nityasha Rathod. Someone who I know speaks about a certain aspect that we don't talk about enough, or rather, we haven't talked about enough in the past. But in recent times, we're beginning to really open up about it. Because think about it, through generations, human beings have suffered from issues with their own self esteem, but how they feel about their own bodies, how they've struggled with the stuff that happens in our minds. And somewhere, we all felt that the only way to deal with this was to keep it to ourselves. But what we didn't realize is that the more we share about how we feel about ourselves, the more we include everybody in making everybody else feel that they're not alone, that we're all feeling so many things that are similar, yet what we're each feeling is okay. And especially in today's world, right, when social media portrays so much of the photoshopped version of our lives, there are few like her who really talking about the stuff that's real, the stuff that they're feeling, the stuff that in many ways makes them truly authentic. That's what's ahead in this week's episode of the Varun Dugi Show. I spoke to her about a bunch of stuff around how she looks at self-esteem, her own life journey, and how she's really been trying to figure out adulting over time. But more than anything else, we really spoke about how really talking about how we feel can actually make us include so many people in our own, include more people in our world. I'm Varun Dugirala, and this is the Varun Dugi Show. Be right back with Ritasha. Welcome back to the Varun Dugi Show, and welcome, Ritasha. This is a very different setting from what we have done last time, because when you and I recorded for my podcast, we were in the middle of the glitch office
Your
with about
office,
50,
yeah.
60 people around us. And this is, we've suddenly gone to like deep, intimate conversation space, like not even in person. This is like we've taken it to another side of things.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is a whole new experience. I think last time I was just really nervous also. And I was thinking about it right now before I got onto this call, about last time, how it was you, Mojo Rojo, and myself. And I was like, I felt so dumb that day. I've never felt that dumb in my life. But today I'm determined to feel intelligent.
But you know, the interesting part is I don't, I keep thinking of that episode because I think that episode taught me a bunch of things. I always thought a live podcast would be a really interesting thing, and I realized that doing it in front of a live audience is a terrible idea. Like I don't understand how people do it. I have heard though that there are live podcast recordings in the states where people, I mean, pre-COVID world, pay money and sit in a theater and watch it almost like a play.
Yeah.
But this was not a play. This was like we were in the middle of the other station, and there were three people
Yeah.
doing a podcast recording. Is what ended up happening.
No, like in a real theater, like in a Prithvi, if one were to record a pod, I feel like it would be killer and it would be beautiful and just maza aega. But yeah.
I want to kind of start off by actually asking about one thing. Is that how are you growing up?
Not growing up only. This is the problem, Varun. We are all just struggling. I guess I was a very comedic child. I
Hmm.
loved making my family laugh. Um, Although my entire childhood was a battle of, oh, I'm fat. So how do I handle that? But beyond that, I think I overcompensated, and my personality was always charming. I was a great kid growing up. Was not very diligent with schoolwork, but always managed to do well. And at the last minute, like kind of pulled it together. So I'm very, very much an advocate for last minute preparation. I really judge people. No, I don't. That's rude. They should prepare, and consistency is key. तभी मैं life में अब भी struggle कर रही हूँ, I feel, because I was so used to that last minute success rate. I don't think that works anymore.
So there's
Yeah.
this last minute success rate, right? I literally I put out I do these short episodes on this show, and one of the ones, and I forget what it's actually called. There's a theory which says that if you give yourself anything to do, and you say I'll do this in a week or I'll do this in 2 days, you will always have the last minute scramble because your mind will automatically fill up stuff to do. So even if you have like 1 week to do something, that last day, that last hour is going to be a rush, no matter what you do, which is interesting.
Life. Yeah. What were you like growing up?
When you said you were a entertainer, I was actually a very like jump around, dance for everybody, really, really want attention kind of a kid, right? So, there'd be guests home and I'd be this kid would come in with different things. Like I would wear different random things, come in, jump in front and dance and really try to get like attention. And also I was that weird kid who'll come and talk to anybody and everybody, even if you were in a train and your parents look away for a second and you suddenly I've gone like 3 rows ahead and talking to some uncle about what my mom told my dad in the morning. I used to be that
Oh
kid.
my God. I would be like, apna bachcha sambhalo.
Yeah, but I sometimes I think that me being a podcaster now is me going back to that kid.
Absolutely.
I finally
No, I
can
was
be
about to
that
say it
person.
all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So love to talk to
So-
people, love to tell stories, and it's a lot of fun being a kid. When I see Leia and I see how her life is, and I'm like, that's the fun that I kind of miss. And sometimes I think we never valued it. She doesn't. She's like, oh, Papa, I want to grow up. I'm like, please don't grow up. I also asked about childhood because I feel that everything that we do as we grow up or are trying to grow up, in some way connects back, right? But the stuff we really wanted, and sometimes the world and how things are kind of pushes stuff around. So it's always interesting to kind of understand what I feel that being. I hate the word childhood is pure. I don't think childhood. I think childhood is we're in that starting enthu cutlet phase, and over time the
Yeah.
cutlets get a little tired.
Yeah. So I'm reading a book right now about self-esteem, and there is something in there which said basically that the best version of yourself, or the purest, most high self-esteem version of yourself, is probably in childhood, between ages 6 to 10, where you didn't give a fuck about the world and you were being your most authentic self. And that's when your self-esteem must not have been battered. And that's what happens through life, where you just start making yourself smaller and smaller in different ways. I miss childhood because of that, I think. Not
What's your
purity.
perspective on self-esteem? I know you have a bunch of stuff on it. I'd love to kind of get into that because I have some in my head, but good to bounce that around.
ऐसा perspective तो कुछ नहीं. I just think it's a very fundamental building block of a person, and the lack of it can really affect one negatively. I'm realizing it more and more with each passing day. When you meet people, you interact with them, actions, they might stem from somebody's lack of self-esteem or a damaged self-esteem in earlier years. So honestly, I just picked up this book because I was feeling like low. So I'm recently single, recently moved back with my parents, lived through a pandemic like us all. Everyone's had their highs and lows. So मैंने सोचा इसमें चलो मैं अपना self esteem बढ़ाती हूँ. I realized how important it is, because that is it. No, everything stems from there. How much one values themselves, and not to be like narcissistic or self-obsessed or selfish, but to have a healthy sense of self-esteem, so that even, like, for example, living on the internet, there's always competition around you. I hate it about myself, but oftentimes I look at other creators and feel, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. But I think a shift in my self-esteem is required so that I don't feel that way. And if one's self-esteem is slightly more elevated and at a healthy place, then you just want everyone to succeed, and you understand that there is enough room for everybody. So I'm trying to get there now.
You mentioned the internet, and that's actually been a point which I thought about a lot, right? I look at it on two sides. One is the fact that would we be talking about mental health, self-esteem, a bunch of these things today if we didn't have the internet? Because I feel that all these have stayed, but I think that we're finally highlighting it. When you mentioned, just like how everyone else posts, um, anybody who says they don't check how many likes a post got, or just like how many comments or how many bookmarks. I'm like, dude, I look
They're
at it all the
lying.
time, right? I have to stop myself many days, and I tell myself, 1 second, you're almost 40, you are the father of a child who's going to be 4 soon, and you're looking at, okay, why did this post not get enough likes? And you have to stop yourself, but you can't stop. It's almost like I remember Tanmay once told me that it's like a dopamine rush that you keep wanting, because the more likes you get, the more dopamine hits. And but I feel it's more than that. I think we feed our own self-esteem by the fact that how many people have liked something we put out there, and I think that's literally what we're looking for, validation on that front. And everybody has their own issues with themselves.
Yeah, I agree. But like to understand that validation does not equal self-esteem boost.
Mm.
So I think we need to make a clear distinction of what really is self-esteem, and it's not available. It's not a thing you can buy on the internet.
How has your, do I say, relationship with self-esteem been?
Up and down, not like everybody else. See, you are the real adult in this situation. Why don't you answer this question first, Tunki?
Oh, I actually had terrible self-esteem for a large part of my life.
Yeah.
Look, and it came from a very weird place. Because I grew up in a small town. Now it's much larger. I'm
Where?
told to stop calling. It's a place called Kakinada on the coast of Andhra Pradesh. I'm purebred Telugu boy. Grew up there. Good dose of Chiranjeevi, Michael Jackson. My parents tried to make
Love
me
it.
listen to Pink Floyd and Deep Purple. Didn't work. Michael Jackson
Your parents
and
were
Backstreet
cool.
Boys.
Yeah. Oh, love it.
They tried very hard. Beatles play kiya, sab try kiya. I'm like, no, Michael is Michael and Prabhudeva. I used to go for breakdancing competitions and stuff like that. I used to try and do all
That's
those things.
killer.
But I was never like that. You're that kid who's not the top performer, but you're that kid who is, oh, he has so much potential. I was that kid, right? Where if you would have a PTA, and I look at PTAs, then look at PTAs now, right? Parent teacher meetings, and I'm like, when I was a kid in a parent teacher meeting, it was always, oh, he has so much potential. I go for layers. I know she's in nursery. Teachers are like, oh, she's very expressive. That's a good thing. No negatives ever, right? And I'm waiting for the but, and there's never a but, which makes me feel happy. I also hear a teacher say, oh, you don't seem to be in the mood to speak today. That's fine. You can speak tomorrow.
The whole
I'm like,
education system has just changed. No.
and I'm like,
Like,
this is what we needed, right? They speak
yeah.
about empathy. They talk about how you feel. How you feel is a question I've heard more in the last 1 year with a 3-year-old than I've actually heard in professional organizations or colleges or anywhere else. I'd never been in a point, but no, kids are being, and I'm like, that gives me a little bit of hope. I'm like, this is something which they're focusing on. But I remember when I left Kakinada to move to Bangalore, that's when I went like full rock bottom. Because suddenly you go to a city, you are at, you stick out like a sore thumb. I've always had a bit of a chip on my shoulder that I come from a small town. I had that for the longest time. It was fed in by a lot of people who were also, I don't think they meant it, but I feel that when you are a person who's lived in the city long enough and you see who's kind of someone coming in from any place that's not a city, you tend to like, there is a little bit of a looking down scenario, or you don't know this. And I didn't help myself. I walked into Bangalore wearing the cool chain from Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. Did not help my case. So,
Very cool, yeah.
पर cool था वो. मैंने cool को loco बनाया था.
I
I
love it.
interchanged the letters. Made cool into loco. I thought that will be cooler. Just made it worse.
Made it loco.
And I kept going down and down till I think at some point I was so self-destructive that at some point I kind of like had to get up and say, you can't screw around with life anymore. You have to be able to get up. And
How old were you when this penny dropped?
penny dropped when I was, I don't remember this, 24?
Young, okay.
24, 25, yeah. I basically, bad phase starting from the time I went into boarding school, 11th and 12th. Then 4 odd years of engineering. Worst phase of just like mentally. I have a lot of friends and then still hang out whenever I meet them, but like really, really bad phase in life just because of how the environment was in college and everything else. And then I ended up not working in that space. Worked in a call center, day and night shift, like 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. AOL cancellations department. Finally woke up one day and said, I can't do this anymore. Like, you can't just be living on intoxication and just like escaping life. Thankfully, moved out of the city, went to Pune to study in symbiosis, and that's where I kind of like I said, okay, I'm making a shift. I'm moving out of a mind space I've been in for a good 6 years, and need to shape up, and that's helped. And the point I said I will make after this, but I want to hear your thoughts on what I just said.
My main questions are like, I break down self esteem into different spheres of my life. And I wanted to know if like real adults like you do that also, or is it like a blanket self esteem, professional, personal, relationships, like sab kuch ek saath aata hai, or is it like you feel differently in different spheres?
So I don't look at it as I never looked at work and life as separate. Like I don't believe in that. I'm like everything merges. It's you compartmentalize life, right? So when someone says what is work life balance, I'm like no, 1 second. In a day you have X number of hours, and I've learned that a lot more in work from home. You spend an hour doing a meeting, spend half an hour playing with Leia, spend an hour doing a podcast recording, spend half an hour just by yourself working out, right? And so you can actually break your entire day up, and you also give yourself that 1 hour to do nothing.
Yeah.
And it might mean 1 hour less of sleep, which is bad. But so for me, that's how. So self-esteem is across the board. Like I've actually had a chip on my shoulder till I started the podcast. Like till I started the podcast, I was actually still that person who would like to be in the back end. Didn't really want to be in front of anything. Now I'm suddenly this person who's back to being how I was when I was like 6, 7. And I'm so happy about that fact. I'm just feeling like liberated.
Yeah. So honestly, this being back at that age is what I'm also trying to do, because I had a session of therapy that day, and my therapist, I have finally asked after 2 years of therapy, just tell me, am I broken? बिकॉज ना थेरेपिस्ट क्या करते हैं, बताते ही नहीं है, वो पूछते रहेंगे, आप बात करते ही रहो, आप बताओ ना मैं क्या करूं, यू आर अ डॉक्टर.
1 घंटे का सेशन है, 55 minutes you speak, 5 minutes they speak, and I'm like, I can talk without you, without paying you also. Exactly. I know, I've been through that once.
So finally, no, but I love my therapist, and
Me
it's
also.
really helped me. But finally now she has told me, no, don't worry, your inner child is intact. So just to now allow that to come out, and same, like that's all I want right now, because what happened to me in the last 5-6 years, professionally I'm doing okay. Like on paper it seems like okay, she's reasonably successful, but I don't think that I'm doing the kind of work I really want to do. So that is not fulfilling me and my self-esteem needs over there. But and personally, I guess I was very fulfilled, but now I have a big void in my life, because I'm somebody who does draw a lot of strength and validation and hope and joy from a romantic relationship, and stability comes from that for me. And I feel much better about myself when I know somebody is there to love me 24/7. Okay, baby, you got this. Now that person is not there, I have to be that person for myself. So yeah, I am in a whole confuddled, befuddled, but more okay place than I was earlier, I guess, because I think the idea of women now choosing to be alone, choosing to get married later, because also there are those two parts of me that are always at war. Part which wants to get married now. Oh, I'm 28, everyone's married, I should get married. And the part of me which is like, what is marriage? What is it going to solve? Nothing. But what is it going to solve, Arun? Tell me.
So marriage is an interesting thing. I always ran away from it. I'll be very honest. My longest relationship before I met Pooja, and I don't think I've ever said this out publicly, 6 months. Longest relationship. Because
that's good then. No.
That's very good. So early days, nobody wanted to date Varun because Varun was this, and that was the earlier point I was pushing to later. Have been this perennial scrawny kid. So I have the opposite problem of people who have trouble losing weight. I have trouble putting on weight. So for me, I can sit and eat. If I don't work out, I become a huddy.
No way.
I am that person, which is why I was always that kid who was very, that really thin one. But the thing which people don't realize is if you're a really thin, scrawny person, you can still have a paunch.
Yeah.
You'll be a thin person with a paunch.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing ever, right?
Yeah, I've seen.
People. Yes, there are lots of us around the place. And so for me, a large part of my, I would say entire adolescence, early adulthood was all about, oh, am I looking too thin? do I need to get buff? Do I need to work out for that? Let's have protein powder. Let's go find a new trainer. I've been through that for so many years, tried random things, had like shoulder injury because I did something wrong. Last 1 year, I've actually discovered how to work out for myself. Last 1.5, 2 years, then to work out for someone else. And that actually happened because of Leia, because when she was born, I was this buff, slightly gotten buffer, like biceps so bigger and like t-shirts are getting tighter and all that stuff. And I would walk around with her as a baby and I'd get tired. And then Monday Pooja said, what's the point of having big biceps?
Yeah.
If you can't carry your own baby around.
Yeah.
So I moved my entire regime. I think that's one of those inflection points. Right? I think, how can I be fit for what I want to do in life? So now all my workouts are totally about me being fit. Like I can jump out of bed after like 5 hours of sleep and still get a workout in. Because I'm running on just generally being fit and being healthy versus your gym bro. I was a gym bro for a long time.
Certain way.
Yeah. It's a thing, and especially I think for guys to seem bulky and muscular is a very, very weird.
ये उनका fucked up beauty standards है ना. For men, like you want a big buff guy and like you want a small skinny girl. Like these are the fucked up beauty standards for all genders. Yeah.
Across the board now, because you always been showcased the muscular hero.
Yeah.
And now the muscles are like everywhere. Which is why I like South Indian heroes, by the way. My South Indian me comes out. I'm like, there are many of the South Indian heroes who still don't give a fuck.
I love that.
And because the audience is like, we want someone who looks like us, which is true. I think that's the whole point. We miss that point most times. Absolutely. But yeah, and I also brought this up, and I will go to the other tangent we're going in. But you obviously speak a lot about body positivity, right? And I feel that it's your go-to thing. It's what you get called in for cosmetizing.
What is it called? Say it.
Cosmetizing.
Means what?
Advertising, which is kind of
cause. अच्छा, for a cause. मैं ही वो टोकन जो सबको मिलती है, चलो इसको बुला लो, बात करते हैं body positivity के बारे में.
Which is why I want to bring it up from the fact that I want to bring up that fact more than your feelings about it, because you've always been asked about, talk about body positivity, but I'm like, it's not a catchphrase. It's how you feel about your own body.
No. People have just like, abhi it's become trendy, Varun. You know this of all people, that when things become trendy, people just want to hop onto the trends.
Yeah. So I always said that it doesn't matter if it's about how your body is, how you're feeling in your mind, how whatever it is. And you need to learn how to normalize it, right? And I feel that's really what we don't do. We make it a thing that, let's talk about this. But I'm like, how do we make it not something we have to talk about?
Exactly. So like, for example, in a show like Schitt's Creek, how homosexuality is normalized by not talking about it or not making it like, acha ye dekho, gay couple, pyar hai, shaadi hai. It's just happening. Everybody's cash about it and reacting to it in a way a normal, like anything would happen. So to normalize it to such a degree where you don't have to even saying this phrase of let's normalize by saying let's normalize, you're pushing it further.
I know.
I feel so.
You don't know what you can do, right? And because also there are two sections of this. Sorry, I cut you off. I want to ask you this. There's two very wide sections of this world, which is one end who have no clue about any of these things. They think it's one of those modern terms that have just come up and it's a thing. And there's the other side, which is using it like a crutch for not necessarily the right reasons, but more for, I need to jump onto this bandwagon is the only reason. And somewhere in between, what you actually want to get out of it gets lost.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I don't think that change one wants in larger society can happen through these things. It has to happen in the everyday interactions and how young kids are made to feel about themselves on a daily basis, either by their families or by the schools or their friends or aunties and uncles. Like self-esteem comes back to this, how you interact with your kids, how you make the kids around you feel. Like Leia's so lucky. She's going to grow up, inshallah, touch wood, without all these fucked up issues that we have. Because it's a different world for them.
It's not, which is the weird part, right? Because as much as we might try, and we battle with this a lot, and it's, she'll kind of come up and she'll be like, the Didi said her skin was dark. And we're like, what? And she said she's not pretty because the skin is dark, something like that, right? Or something like that. I'm like, what do you mean? And so we try to have these conversations with her. But at some point, it's not a game you can entirely win. You can
Yeah.
try what you can as parents, but what we've realized, and we shuddered every time that's happened, right? And we're like, we've seen this our entire lives. And I luckily, and I know Pooja also to an extent, we've had parents, because also both our parents, which is like Pooja's mom and my mom and dad, also came from slightly better mindsets than I would say generations before them. So they all kind of came in with, okay, we don't want our kids to go through what we went through, or just kind of go through the environment that we've gone through. But I feel it's also what you're surrounded by that pushes you towards stuff that just seems to stick much longer than the good stuff sticks.
I guess. Even I have so much of this internalized beauty standards, and even though like I've spent the last 4 or 5 years say trying to unlearn what society has taught me, I still catch myself so many times falling into those very trappings of whether it's gender roles or the way I look or the way I interact in this world.
Yeah. It's also small things. I also feel that most times we focus on the larger things that lead to what you just said, right? Roles, or just like how self-esteem gets pushed around. How I don't think it's an old school versus new school thought process. I think there are two schools. There is progressive and regressive schools, as I call it, but or rather, what is needed for now. Because even when I try to tell someone about how someone is born gay and that they're not necessarily something they grow into in most cases, or the fact that most people are bi-curious in that sense of the word and get into all of that, it's a reaction. But हमारे time पे इतना होता नहीं था. I've heard that people, and I've heard young people say it. Like people, like when I say young, I'm like people my age say it. And I'm like, dude, no. I mean, and that actually takes me into a thought process of saying, almost like looking back at everything that you ever said, and realizing that you've been a part of the problem as well many times, because you all cracked those jokes. We all said those things. Sometimes that comes out naturally even now. But at least now you're learning to hold yourself back to some extent.
I was about to say, and recognizing safe spaces. So really, if you're chilling with your two best friends and you say something horrible which wouldn't fly in the outside world, you're in a room full of 3 people who know that, A, this is wrong of you to say, but also it's funny you said it in this context. So we can laugh about it, but still be woke and still be progressive and move on. So, but it's still not okay.
But is that line weird then? I remember I was on you have these groups, right? Like you mentioned. You have your WhatsApp groups, you have your friends you hang out with, then where you will say really random shit, right? You will call each other things.
Awful things, yes.
Really, really awful things. And at some point, some of us start calling out one or two things. Let's not use those words. Let's not use those terms. And someone said, then we won't be. When we'll only be sharing forwards on this group, which is true, because, and which is where I know that I battle with this in my head, and I'd love to get your perspective. Is that how do you still make sure that some of those things were said in to kind of build? I mean, maybe the bond was built on the wrong things then, but it's how do you kind of make sure that it's still the same positives come in without the negatives of it?
So my thing to this, my go-to is being like, haha, I think that's funny, but it's wrong. Don't say this outside. Because one of my very dear friends, she's the best, and I know her heart inside out, and I know she's pure and wonderful and all of those things, but she says bad things sometimes. And I'm like, you cannot get caught saying this in the outside world. They will lynch you. I understand where you're coming from. So I suppose I also see that's the thing, intent. And it's a thin line between, oh, I didn't intend to hurt somebody. But the world we live in now, offense is very easy to take. And of course, for good reason, there are many things we need to be mindful of when we talk to people. I think that's my only perspective, to like educate oneself and the immediate surroundings. That day, for example, like it's a very small incident, but somebody had come to, like a lab technician had come to take a blood test for me. And my dad was like, "Hey, hero." And I was like, "Dad, you can't talk to people like that. What is a hero?" Because I know you don't mean to call him a hero. you're calling him hero, thinking he thinks, I don't know what the fucked up nuances of that is, a hero. So I called him out immediately on that. And I was like, don't talk to people like that. It's not kind. So I do that also with like small incident.
Yeah.
The bigger stuff too, like, of course, like big time call outs happen.
You know, what you said is interesting because I feel that a true reflection of the world we live in is family WhatsApp groups and building society WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
I'm sure if anybody from my building who reads this, listens to this, if they do, I'm like, wow, you listen to my podcast, well, watch it. But yeah, it teaches me a lot about, because I think we all live in our bubbles also, right? We
Yeah,
expect
because
people to be
even on
certain way.
Instagram, it's the people that you relate to. The wokeness is right there. But
Yeah.
in your everyday real life, you're talking to real people who are not woke
They're
necessarily.
not. They don't even get
give
it.
a fuck. Yeah, which is fair. They are right where they are.
Are they really?
I mean, is it bothering? Like, I don't know. I think they are all just living their best lives. And
So,
sometimes
example,
ignorance is bliss.
I have seen many times that there'll be a person who's a delivery guy getting into a lift. And there'll be somebody who says, Aapko dusra lift mein chalo. And I'm like, that's human being.
Doesn't
Get in. And that for me is the, you know, it just, that's like being not a nice person. I mean, I have no other way to put it.
Honestly, I also want to ask you, like, the class divide. In a situation like that, you're obviously going to be like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, as a dad, for example, tomorrow Leia's 22, 23. She falls in love with somebody who comes from a very underprivileged background, not educated. Family lives in a very rural part of the country. Major socioeconomic gap.
Yeah.
How do you react?
So my gap is generally, and I've actually thought about this question a lot because it has come up in different contexts whenever I bring up stuff like this. I look at the person. So my big call outs there would be, and when I say not educated, doesn't mean that someone has to have like I worry when, is this short term or long term basis? Will you be happy with this person in the long term? Tell me why, it would be my question, right? It shouldn't be, because I was that kid, right? I was not in this context, but I was a person who turned to my parents when I was like, 22, 23, with my then girlfriend, and I said I want to marry her. And they're like, are you sure? And I thought that was the right question to ask. You ask a 20-year-old, are you sure? You also ask them, you're still studying, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to just apply to the same universities she is in the US. She's applying, and we'll just go there. They were really bad universities. And they're like, really? You want to apply to those? Yeah, she wants to go there. And then it just went, and like, when I think back on what I was saying, I feel like sometimes you get into the flow of things. So I would look at it from it's easy for me to say, but I would look at it from a very, okay, is this going to be something that will stick on for you?
Yeah.
I would actually say just date for a longer period of time. Why do you have to get married? Like, I got married when I was like, I don't remember how old I was, but I know it's been 8 years. But
you were 31, 32.
Yes.
31 and a half.
Something like that.
Sorry, I'm just saying. No.
Yeah. So, and it's fine. Like, you don't have to, the getting married thing is, you do it more to get, to be able to stay in rent in Bombay housing societies, because it's easier to get rental agreements if you're married.
Yeah. But otherwise, you don't think like as an adult now it's like important to be like, settle ho ja, shadi kar le.
You get married because you want to take something that is purely romantic to being a partnership. When you go into a partnership, you're connecting your life goals of whatever those might be together. You're connecting finances together. You're connecting, okay, we'll end up having to settle together. So let's plan for some of that stuff together. So me and Pooja have a partnership. And we look at our marriage that, which is the primary line we give to it, and we have roles in our marriage. We share. I will not say share the road. We will share aspects of what each of us has to do, and that's why you get married. You don't get married. You don't have to get married to have a kid.
Yeah.
Although I was told that in biology class in 8th standard.
Bakwas.
But I felt bad for that. I'll go, okay, let me explain. I feel bad for my biology teacher. I've made fun of her for years in front of people. Old lady, must have been 70 plus, or 65, 70 plus. But teaching biology to 8th standard kids.
Very difficult for.
Teaching life processes too. And you have a kid like me who gets up and says, she's like, the sperm goes and it goes. So you talk about the sperm going to a certain point, and then it would suddenly be near the egg. I'm like, hello, madam, between that point and this point, कुछ तो बीच में gap था. वो कैसे हुआ? And she'd be like, no, we'll get into that. But I have a question. You didn't tell me. You literally you skipped one entire part. Like suddenly we went from DVD 1 to DVD 3. DVD 2 mein kya hua? So she said after marriage it will happen.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Thankfully, father's a doctor, so I went back and dad took a notepad out and drew it out for me and showed me. Give this to your friends. I'm like, okay, I'll show my friends the drawing my father has made of a penis and a vagina, and I will go show it.
इसे intercourse कहते हैं बच्चों.
Intercourse.
Yeah.
But all these things add up, no? The fact that you're not free about talking about sex, the same way you're not free about talking about how your body is or how you feel in your head. It all kind of adds up to how you eventually become.
But even this freedom, it's not, I don't know, I'm fully digressing, I guess, but this being free and being okay to talk about everything and being the person that I am, and a lot of us are this way. We are a minority in this country again, and
Yeah.
it is scary. Then sometimes you're like, I don't even want to be this free person outside. It's better to be free in the confines of my safe spaces, because this world and this society at large is scary.
I actually sometimes feel that when you talk about different stratas, I feel what we call so-called upper strata is actually more aggressive than.
I agree. Yeah.
But my cook's son wants to be a Instagram influencer. He's telling his mom, I have 1,000 followers. Okay.
Amazing.
I checked 100 followers. Boys hustling it from now. So he bunks school and makes reels and puts them up.
God.
And she's like, I don't know how to deal with him, but it's fine. He's just entertaining people. I'm like, you actually said that you're okay with your son entertaining people, although him skipping school is a problem. So you say that. But I'm like, I can imagine that conversation going very differently for someone who lives in, let's say, a high rise and says, no, but you're not focusing on.
Beta, you have to pass your SATs and go to Ivy League school. What's wrong with you?
Ivy League. By the way, have you seen the documentary on in Netflix about the whole American university piece?
No.
You should really watch it. That entire scandal that happened about them paying to get them in. And I was laughing. So there's this whole scandal that happened in the US where this one guy, what we call in India sports quota, वो sports quota को game कर रहा था. हम लोग उस जमाने से कर रहे हैं. मतलब I'm like, amateurs, this is your thing now. He was basically saying you could either give donations to the university, which is what we call management quota. This is how I did my engineering, management quota.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So I know I have a story there at some point, which I will tell about how I got management quota. And on the other side is getting through merit, which many people try, and then they end up writing year after year to get into exams. And he calls it a side door. He says side door is I get you in as being part of a sports team. So he'd get someone whose parents are really rich and get them to pay, and he would almost showcase them as a sports person in a certain team. So being hired to be part of that sport. They never played it. So everything from like photoshopping images to paying off coaches, really like there are popular actors who have had to go to jail for this because their kids they paid for. Aunt Becky from Full House, if you've seen Full House, Aunt Becky went to jail.
Are you kidding me?
Aunt Becky went to jail for 6 months. Whose daughter is an influencer, who then went on Red Table with Jada Pinkett Smith to talk about her mother going to jail. Yes, please watch the documentary.
The pressure, man.
But,
oh my God.
But that's the thing. So, and spoiler alert for anybody who wants to watch it, and I'm telling you this. The daughter of Aunt Becky, I don't forget her name, I only call her Aunt Becky.
Becca McLaughlin or something.
Her daughter is a genuine influencer, right? Like she had her own beauty makeup line with Sephora. She had a YouTube channel with lakhs of followers, all of that stuff. But they still wanted her to go to UCLA. So they did all of this to get her in there through a sports team quota, which everybody knew because she had shared every aspect of her life online already. So, ये sports में कब जाती है sports में? तो full time तो Instagram पे ही है, YouTube पे. That's one of the reasons they got caught. And I'm like, so some parts of it didn't surprise me because I'm like, we've been doing this for years over here. Like sports quota here is like a thing, right?
But is it worth it now? Like to do
it's not.
Shit?
It's
That's
not
so
at all. In most cases, and that's something which they say in the document, and I agree with that. I think that's universal. Parents push kids to have certain kinds of education because they didn't have that.
Yeah.
It's either that or we always went. हमारे खानदान में सब Ivy League
Parampara.
में पढ़ चुके हैं. परंपरा, प्रतिष्ठा. That
Yeah. That way, touch wood, I honestly have to just give a shout out to my parents. No pushing has happened. To a point of I'm like crying in 10th standard, being like, "Mujhe nahi dena exam." My dad's like, "Fuck it, don't go." And I'm like, "Are you kidding? No, I'll study and go." So they've done some reverse weird parenting. I mean, they fucked me up in their own way. But
all parents do. No? There is no way parents cannot fuck you up. And I say this to Pooja. I'm like, there's no way Leah will not turn around to a therapist 15, 20 years
One
later
day.
and say, my parents fucked me up this way. It is natural. You are taking a human being from inception to base set of values. But every human being is flawed. So you will obviously gravitate. Like, I know that I teach her some random things which I know at some point will come back to bite me.
Yeah.
Because I teach her to be random. And I teach her to be like, how do I put it? I try to not give a fuck.
That's lovely.
And at some point she's like, my dad taught me never to give a fuck, right?
So in some situation it could go against her. She'll be my dad. Yeah.
I'm like, sort of, like today morning, I'm like, Leah, you want to bunk school today? And she's like, no, I don't want to bunk school today. I'm like, I want to sleep a little bit more. And she's like, Papa. Yeah. So she's that kid.
How have you changed as a person since becoming a dad to a daughter, Varun?
I've always wanted to have a daughter. I'll be very honest.
Same. I am like scared to have a son.
Also, because I've had friends who tell me who have daughters and sons who say that daughters are great because they're a lot more sorted, a lot faster. With boys, you don't know if you'll have to make sure that they don't like hit themselves in the head as soon as they leave the room, which is very true. Coming from a person like me who once jumped off a moving bus to try and see if all those things that happen in the movies could actually happen.
Wow.
Yes, I had like knees chipped off, elbows chipped off. वो करते थे ना वो बस से कूद के. I did that. I tried it.
Very bad. What the fuck? What is
One day, but many years later, I did mention it in my TEDx talk.
Oh, good.
There's a story I could tell in life. But I realized that in this conversation, you have asked me more questions than I have asked you. This
I am
role
a
reversal
podcast host too, so.
Which is what I was going to come to. I was going to come to saying, how has being a podcast host changed you? Or has it?
It's made me more aware about, like, mindful about conversations. Because I feel earlier we never had, like, this is an hour for a conversation. Earlier conversations were just things that happened by chance. Like, you're chilling with friends, baatein ho gayi, having dinner with family, baatein ho gayi. Podcasting is like a solid hour of conversation time. And it's changed me because it helps me to think a little bit outside of my comfort zone sometimes. Although often I'm just a lazy podcaster. I don't do research. That's Ayushi's job.
No, I don't do research either.
I don't even prepare any questions. I'm like, chalo, jo man mein aaye bol do.
Exactly. That's how it should be. I have a term for it. You can use it.
What is it?
You're an improv podcaster.
Yes. I absolutely am. I'm an improvster.
Improv podcast, I think, sounds better.
Yeah, better. You're right. Sorry for asking so many questions.
No, please ask questions. What I worry about, and this is one big worry I have in life, is that if in a conversation I am asked more questions, I always worry, am I talking more than I should listen? And I've always been very mindful of that.
I talk all the time. I need to listen more.
I also don't want to be a mansplainer. Which I think every guy's default setting somewhere muscle memory, you're a mansplainer. But it's important to have those worries, no?
Yes. You are on a good path to wokeness, I feel.
Yes. I don't think I'm woke though. I don't fall into that. Okay, let me explain why I said I don't fall into that. Is I worry that the day I say I'm woke, that I'll be held to a set of things that I have to stand by. And I'm like, I don't want to. So I use this term, which I think is very less. I'm like, I'm a centrist.
Yeah, got it.
Centrist. Because does me saying I am woke mean that the fact that I pray every night before I go to sleep a problem? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the woke rules are. So I think, yeah, to be progressive and open-minded is where I think we both are at.
Yes.
But without,
Yes.
even I'm like scared of woke culture after a point.
Yeah, it can become very, and it's this whole like, there are no two sides. It is
Yeah.
people. You have a mixture of, like, I know people who are very staunch about certain things, like religion, who are very chill about things beyond that. And I'm like, that's fine. It's, you have faith. It's good to have faith in something.
Absolutely.
When we all have faith in our own different ways. My grandmother's faith used to be like, have like major pujas at home. My mother and father were like, do very privately do do that. And
And
for
you
me,
just
it's also that.
married Pooja.
Married puja, yeah, exactly. So
You got your own puja
I got my
going
own
on
puja.
all
Yes.
the time.
Yes, all the time.
Sorry for this bad joke. I just had to.
No, it's a joke has been cracked a million times just by me only. So this is not like a, but it's true, right? And that's actually one thing which always also worries me about how what you might have done in the past being part of what is now, is that this whole cancel culture business is that, did I ever say something? Did I ever post something? Did I ever retweet or like something which will kind of come back to me 5, 8, 10 years later? Someone's like, oh, you.
Probably we did, it's possible.
I'm very sure I did.
Even I'm pretty sure we've all done it. So,
Which I can go all the way back to self-esteem. You worry about every single thing you said.
yeah.
And you worry about, is me saying this in some way, way back, going to affect me down the line? That's why people keep clearing up browsing history, because they think that helps. It doesn't.
No, it doesn't, right?
It's on the internet forever. Yes, guys, it does not help. What motivates you in life?
I would say the very fact that I'm alive, because I've been in a major, like, why was I born crisis for many years now. Like, what is the purpose? Why? So, kuch to hai, kuch to, matlab, there's some great grand scheme of thing going on, which is why I'm here. So that motivates me. I have this life. I have the blessings that I do. I've had the privilege I've had, which very few girls get anyway. So that's become a more apparent thing, because meeting so many women who don't have it, and then seeing all my friends and classmates and contemporaries who do have it, the disparity is staggering. It hurts me, it pains me on a regular basis. So yeah, बस यही है कि as a girl I get to live this amazing life, तो अभी मैं इसका कुछ तो amazing करना चाहूंगी.
That's the most intriguing answer to this question that I've heard. And I'm saying this mainly because you made me think about, okay, why were you born is the question which is so tricky, right? And for me, I'm like, always, it's an accident. It just happens.
Why? My parents did not take my consent before I was born.
In the conversations you've had with her on the podcast through this period of time, what has she kind of taught you about yourself?
Aisha and I have been friends since we were 14. So that's 14 years of friendship now.
But no.
In the
there are conversations that happen as friends. But once you're having those conversations on something that is out there for the world to hear, there are things that, I don't think it changes you as people, as friends, but I think there's something that's there.
I think, in fact, maybe the pod has helped me become more aware of where I stand on certain things because of the questions Ayushi asks and the chats we have. I like to feel more and articulate less. And what she does is help me articulate all of the feelings I have.
That's exactly what friends should do, right? You actually gave in a line what friends should do. They balance you out. They balance the stuff that's off balance for you, is what all friends need to do. And yeah, that's a beautiful line.
You're welcome, Dougie. You can use it as a quote and promote it, and just give me some bow on your.
You realize we both do this, right? And I realize you do it because I noticed it because I do it a lot. Is that when you have a moment which is, you have that pause moment, you get awkward and you make it into a joke. I do this all the time, and I've always been told, learn to enjoy that moment. I'm sure you've been told a million times. The natural muscle memories to make it a joke. Like I'm like, yeah, you become yeah.
You know what? You're right, because the new Natasha is not like this. The new Natasha is different. I'm having a glow up.
Actually, I'm just going back to one piece, and I realized that I didn't speak about it earlier. When we spoke about the children in us and how we kind of bring that back, there's this theory I've been throwing out to people, whoever will listen, and most people have told this to us. I found it interesting. I said that When we are born, we have one animal inside us, which I like to call the creator animal. The creator animal is that kid who likes to do all kinds of random shit, do like whatever. Matlab, you don't need to really have a reason for wanting to do something or enjoy doing something. You just genuinely like to do stuff that makes you happy. Then one day this new animal shows up called the career animal. Career animal says, okay, creator, go into hibernation. Now your focus in life is career, what you do, what the world tells you, how do you find your spot in the world in that entire supply chain of the industrialization of being human is. And that has always been the case, right? And I know so many people who say, I want to retire so I can do stuff I really enjoy. I've always found that to be really sad because I'm like, you should be doing what you enjoy today. But I feel the internet today allows you to do both. So they can both exist together in your own farm, where you can have the creator animal and your career animal hang together and you can be old McDonald. I just added old McDonald here for some random reason, but that's been my theory for the longest time. So have you, and in a long-winded way, if you look at what you've been focusing on in your career versus what you like to do as a kid and everything together, is there balance because of both sides of what you do as an actor, as a podcaster, on the other hand, just stuff which you genuinely just like to do because you like to do it?
This question has put me into existential dread. I think there's a part of me which knows of the potential and knows of all the talent I have. And then there's the real life, which is the world out there where you go for auditions and you get rejected. And out of 15 parts, maybe one part is written for you, and that also you may not get. So, as much as I would love to act, and I think the child in me has somewhere, the creator child in me has been dulled because of life and what this industry has been like, and the beauty standards and the kachra writing and the kachra production and the kachra audience.
That's true.
To find that creator child and be like, come, we got this. Let's go back there. Let's draw inspiration from that place. I was a very funny kid, and like in the last 3-4 years, I feel like I have lost the humor of life. I can't take jokes anymore. Also because of this internet culture where you start taking everything too seriously and in the fear of hurting somebody or being kind or being empathetic, you can't even laugh at anything anymore. And I've become like that. And I hate it. I hate it. I want to be young and free and make my career child meet my creative child and be like, here guys, y'all are besties. Y'all have been besties. Chalo na kuch karte hain mazedar.
And the internet should actually allow that to happen more than not allowing that. In a idealistic world.
Yeah.
That's the utopian world is the internet allows both of them to coexist. I think Anushka shared this, Manchanda, and I know a bunch of other posts were part of that. She said that when you call me a creator, in some way you are taking away the artist in me. I think you have to post 4 times a day.
I shared this thread yesterday. Yeah, it was such a good thread because labeling everyone as content creators, suddenly the art is just like it's become a race and it cannot be, and it's because of people who, good for them, they're very good at it but have managed to become the content creators, and suddenly the rest of us are like, fuck, is this what we're supposed to do to exist and thrive on the internet? And of course not. There's a whole world outside of it, and got to remind ourselves.
Because you forget the fundamental of being a content creator, right? Is that there's not one kind. The one kind are the people who are posting stuff. The problem is a majority of people find it easier to post all the time because they will kill you with volume. I do that. I have a very clear flow of what I'm putting out. It exhausts me from time to time, which is when I say, guys, I'm on a pause. I make that a thing. I'm like, I'm on a pause. I'm not putting anything for a few days. The other kind of people who put up one thing or maybe 2 things in a month, if at all they do, and that has value because they've spent time in making it, right? Because and that's actually a YouTube thing. I've realized that the YouTubers who are very popular who put up one thing a month, and they're really, really popular because they're saying, no, I do one thing. I don't do the other things. And neither side is wrong. It's just the fact that you shouldn't be pushed to choose one or the other. You should choose what is right for you.
What works, for you. Absolutely.
Because I'm that Entukatil bunny who wants to keep posting all the time. Who are like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? I'm that person. I'm like, people hate me because I'm this over enthu person all the time who always wants to do something. And guess what? Our daughter's exactly like me.
But yeah, you do it very organically, and it seems like you enjoy doing it
Yeah.
most of the time. So that's
I'm called
nice.
exhausting. I've been told you're exhausting because you just like randomly want to do 50
I
things.
used to use social media to express myself, and I used to really enjoy it. And now suddenly I feel like if a day goes by without posting a story, I'll be like, shit, should I post a story?
That's a tricky slope. And I'm saying that also because I feel that you need to post because you want to, because not because you need to.
Yeah.
And once you can actually draw that line is where you'll find balance. And the only way to do it is just pause, is just like stop doing it. Like no matter what, just like I do that, and it's always helped me because I've gone through that slope. My tendency to do 50 things has to be brought down to 5. It'll never be 0 for me at least. You can only do that by saying, I'm not doing it for a week. The world will not end. All your followers will not run away. All the people who are waiting with bated breath, according to your own mind, to see your content are not going to go away.
Yeah.
They go away, it's fine, they'll come back. The algo will work its magic. And we all have our self-esteem intact. You kept going back to that, haven't we, in this entire conversation?
You came back to it. So yeah, because you are the podcast host, so you are
Yes.
God in this, and you can make it happen.
This has been the one episode where I know I have freewheeled the most because I've really enjoyed having this conversation. And I just let it go into whichever direction it is organically. And I actually don't have a way to close it off. And I'm going to actually ask you, how should we close this episode off?
I want you to give me your top 5 tips to being a successful adult across the board, in whatever success means to you.
Top 5 tips on how to be an adult would be number 1, don't go after the caricature of what an adult is. An adult can want to wear shorts all day, can not want to have beer every day. I do, but you can not want to. You don't have to be the responsible one. You don't have to be, you don't have to be the cliches of it. You can just be human. You're just older. That's the only thing you have been able to do. But I think being an adult is just being responsible. You need to know there's some things you are responsible for, and you just keep an eye on those, and everything else is fine. That's the primary one, right? Everything else kind of comes after that, which is
Zimmedari. Yep.
Yeah. Number 2 is don't try not to be like a kid. I try every day to make sure I do something really. Like the other day, I found a random old Lego piece that I'd bought, which I not bought. I got it for free, and I never made it. I spent 15 minutes, just a tiny one. I made it. I'm like, I felt so happy. I'm like, you're an adult. You can still do that. You can enjoy putting Lego together. I don't know if I'll end up having 5 at the end of this, but give yourself some time. I think people believe that being an adult means that you don't have time for yourself, that you can't have random pursuits that you follow individually. I give myself an hour a day, every day, to just do whatever I want to do in the night. Thankfully, everybody else in the house sleeps earlier. So I get that 1 hour to nicely sit and do whatever I want to do. So just do that, and everything else follows. I mean, I literally have 3. I don't even have 5.
That's great. I love these top tips. Give yourself time, handle the responsibilities, everything will fall into place. What's the other one you said?
The third
Allow
one
the
was,
child in you. Yeah. Go back
don't fall for the
being
caricature of the adult.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ritasha. Thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been It's been a fascinating conversation with the person who I've always found supremely interesting.
I've also admired you from a distance for a long time, Doogie. It's nice to sit and chat without filters and without
a crowd of 50 people around us.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a ton for coming on the podcast, and we shall do this without having to record it next time.